The lesson here is obviously if you want to get better at something, it's just find somebody who's better and hire them or get mentored by them, right? Because that's, the key to success. You mentioned that you got some copy coaches when you kind of went into that. Where did you look for them and why did you think you needed them at that point?
I think, okay, so I'll answer the second question first, which is why did I think I need them? I think it was just confidence, or lack of it at that point, right? Like I hadn't launched an offer. I hadn't seen my copy go out to front end, cold traffic as a front end offer, converting cold traffic and bringing in customers. So I hadn't experienced that. So, naturally I had, a lack of confidence in that area. So I said, well, how can I improve the odds? How can I improve the odds that, something I will, write will perform very well on cold traffic. Yeah. So I was like, well, there's a lot of, pieces here that are going for me. But the only thing that I'm uncertain of is my own ability. So I'm going to go hire a copy coach to basically increase the odds that this is going to be a success out the gate. So yeah, and I think I just asked around, really. It was actually, I hired one of the A-list copywriters. Actually, you might know him, David Deutsch. David Deutsch, I hired David, did several sessions with him. And then, so we worked on that specific piece. So in my mind, I was like, this is an investment because I'm going to be able to recoup the cost from the royalties. And that's what I did. It actually worked out. So it was a smart move on my part. So it gave me more importantly, the thing I got from that was the confidence, I can do this.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess you're a true visionary because now, I mean, all we're seeing now is a lot of, Copy Accelerator and a lot of these programs that are just kind of teaching and mentoring copywriters and so forth. There's no actual course like in school you could take. So it's just kind of finding the best or people who you can afford at least and getting some critiques and that's like, I mean, you did it before the time or before your time because I saw that trend really happening in 2018, 2019. Really? It started becoming, I don't know, maybe I was targeted well on Facebook because I kept getting ads for these types of things. So I was like, maybe an area of interest, but it's, the lesson here is obviously if you want to get better at something, it's just find somebody who's better and hire them or get mentored by them, right? Because that's, the key to success is, you can't grow if you're not getting any advice or any feedback on your work. So
right. 100%. So, I agree. Like that, the feedback initially was priceless because you don't know what you don't know, right? Exactly. You've seen other people at the time. I saw these copywriters, that were, it's kind of funny. At the time there was guys I think Chris Haddad were kind of some names you would hear oh, he's a great copywriter, blah, blah, blah. And, and I was like, wow, how do I get to that level? And it's well, coaches, which is another side note. It's funny, nowadays, I'm partnered with Haddad on something. So it's interesting to see it kind of come full circle. I was looking up to him and now we're working together. It's kind of cool.
Well, the interesting thing about this industry I find is that people, you started in 2014, which is not a lot of time. You know what I mean? It's going from zero to where you are now running, 20, 30, and so on $1 million businesses is nuts. This is an industry where, if you really put a lot of effort in it, you get the right coaching, you get, some help, you can really see some headway and you can really, obviously increase your wealth. So, I love that story that you went out, your first thing was, hey, I went out, I got a coach, to get better. Yeah. So that obviously says that you had the tools, you thought that was a good idea. I'm curious, you went from copywriter, and now obviously, you did emails, and so forth. And now you're owning a couple of offers. What are your biggest challenges? What did you go through to become from copywriter and offer owner?
I wrote an offer that did very well. And that's actually, the one that Julian may have mentioned, it was the shepherd's diet, right? It was a Christian weight loss offer. Did really well at the time. I think it grossed $30 million in the first year, something around there. And I was a copywriter, but I wasn't the owner, right? And I learned that was a hard lesson for me because I saw how successful it did. And I wrote 100% of that copy, but I at the end of I got screwed out of that deal. I didn't get any of the royalties I was promised. The offer owners tried to lock me into this like thing like, well, if you want to keep the royalties, you got to like write other offers, and they changed the deal after the fact. And I was just like, it didn't sit well with me. So I was like, yeah, fuck, screw you guys. I'm out of here. So that was the first lesson. And that probably put some trust issues. Like having that experience gave me some trust issues with potential partnerships. Right. So maybe for a good year there, I was like, I'm not going to partner with anyone. I'm just going to do this on my own. But that was probably a bigger hurdle, is to get over that trust issue. Right. Because, again, like partnerships are like marriages. Like, like you just don't get married to anyone. Right. Like you've got to treat it with a lot of respect and a lot of, you gotta let it grow organically, which I did with Julian. So that was something I overcame, and it was overcame with a beautiful partnership so far that's, evolved into something that's pretty big. So that's one thing I've had, a challenge, which is more of an internal challenge. The other, I mean, they're all internal challenges, but it was we identify as at each level of business, there's a tendency, or whatever the evolution that you are in your career, there's a tendency to identify and label yourself a certain way, right? So, he mentioned copywriter, and that he's had to evolve past that kind of self-label, and myself included in that. I'll group myself like this. I think that's been a challenge as well, is taking away that label and say, look, I'm not just a copywriter. Copywriting is a tool that I use to accomplish a certain goal. But, if you look at the grand scheme of things, the ultimate goal is bottom line profit. And then what are you going to do with that profit? Like, roll it over into your wealth, and even further down, like, what are you going to do with all that stuff? So taking a bigger, longer term view on things has helped me kind of shed those labels, and it also allows the company to grow, because if I identify myself as a copywriter, there's more of a tendency for me to just not let someone else do that work. Like another copywriter, someone who has that label for themselves, they can come in, I can hire them, and they can do it, because in my opinion, I think a lot of, you'll probably agree with me, is that in order to grow something bigger, you got to really leverage other people, right? Leverage other people's minds and their hours of work and their skill sets.
Hope you found today's session valuable. If you have any questions for me or just want to connect, please feel free to visit my website, mariasparagis.com. That's mariasparagis.com. I'd love to hear what you're working on, so drop me a line on any hot button issues your business is experiencing. And remember, don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once.